All right. Hello. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good day. I'm not sure which of those to lead with, but either way, thank you for signing on and joining us for this presentation. My name is Mark Beatty. I'm a sports administration assistant professor at Fort Lewis College. And my co-author on this research is Dr. Brian Turner, an associate professor of sports management at The Ohio State University. I'm gonna make sure I say that one right. And the title of our presentation here is The Impact of Person-Environment Fit on the Academic and Athletic Satisfaction of NCAA Division II student athletes. And before we begin, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the College Sport Research Institute and the University of South Carolina for hosting this conference this spring in really challenging times. Of course, we'd all wish we could be there in person, sharing our research and commiserating, but kudos to CSRI for putting on a conference this year. Okay, so let's get started. This research was born out of an interest of organizational theory and its utility in college sport team settings. More specifically, as an investigative tool for factors related to team dynamics, things like organizational culture or team culture, interpersonal relationships and dynamics in team settings between athletes and coaches, and the effects that those dynamics have on the student athletes' experience on campus. Okay. Now, we chose Division II as the research setting for a variety of reasons. Most people, I don't know if most is the right term, maybe many people at this conference, practitioners or scholars, may be aware that in the past decade, the Division II and its member institutions reworked their strategic plan, and they launched a new strategic plan, I think in 2015. One of the tenets of that plan was this philosophy of life in the balance, which was a initiative that emphasized holistic student athlete development among Division II member institutions. Okay, so focusing on things like academic achievement, athletic achievement certainly, but also community engagement as important tenets of the Division II student athlete experience. Okay, so I think most people would agree that's a very worthy goal or a worthy ambition for Division II and its members. However, excited as administrators may be about those ambitions or goals, right? Many administrators in Division II institutions also a little bit intimidated by those challenges, right? Recognizing that Division II institutions especially face barriers when implementing new programs on their campuses or in their athletic departments, right? And many of those barriers are related to the sort of constrainment on resources for Division II institutions, right? The limited research that exists in this environment does suggest that Division II institutions don't have the resources necessary to do all that they want to do for student athletes, right? Capital and operating budgets aren't there for funding. Facilities and personnel, related to student athlete academic development or professional development or community engagement that exist on many Division I campuses aren't there for many Division II institutions. And coaches themselves, as busy as they are, wearing multiple hats within their department, don't have the time they wish they did to encourage and help their students in those holistic development measures away from athletics specifically. And of course, right, these challenges are only going to be intensified coming out of the post-COVID world in the next several years, where many athletic departments, not just Division II, are recovering from the financial losses and other losses they've taken during the pandemic in 2020 and beyond. Right, so thus it remains imperative for athletic directors and administrators and coaches, frankly, to shore up or better leverage their existing resources and structures if they wish to improve and enhance the student athlete development experience. Right, so our study was interested in the extent to which team dynamics specifically could be used to those ends. Right, so our purpose statement was interested in exploring how team dynamics affect a student athlete's perception regarding their experiences in athletics and academics. Now, the construct that we drew on specifically is one that's pretty well tested, tried and true in the organizational literature, person-environment fit. Okay, and this construct is defined as the overall compatibility an individual has within their organizational or workplace environment, right? How well a person perceives that they fit in with their organizational or workplace environment. Am I a good match for this organization? And is this organization a good match for me as an individual? Now, the literature has identified 4 dimensions or domains of person-environment fit in terms of how people negotiate their sense of fit in their organizational environment. Right? We start with person-job fit. Right? How well I fit in with the role, the job, the tasks that I'm asked to perform. Person-supervisor fit. Right? How well I fit in or perceive that I fit in with my supervisor or my boss, right? Do our values, goals, and expectations align with one another? Person group fit, right? This speaks to a sense of compatibility, a sense of fit among coworkers or within the members of a work team or a work group. And then finally, in the bottom right of this slide, person organization fit. Right, this one speaks to overall compatibility with organizational culture. Okay, so again, those terms like values, goals, expectations, assumptions, and behaviors. How well do I feel I fit in with the overall culture in this organization? As I said, person environment fit is pretty well tested, tried and true in the organizational literature, and for good reasons. It's been attached to several important individual and organizational level outcomes. There's consistent relationship with job satisfaction, consistent relationship with commitment, and I should say positive relationship with both job satisfaction and commitment, and then a consistent negative relationship with withdrawal and turnover intention, things that organizations and individuals want to avoid. Now, I've bolded job satisfaction here as that's the construct we chose to include in the research design. Okay, so our research questions were as follows. Right? How does a student athlete's perceived person environment fit impact their academic satisfaction? And then how does a student athlete's perceived person environment fit impact their athletic satisfaction? Right? So looking at the relationship that person environment fit has on some of those holistic student athlete development measures. Okay, so as we're designing this research, the most obvious question is conceptualizing person environment fit within a college athletic team. Right, this construct has been mostly applied to organizational or workplace settings. So how can we get this, or how can we integrate this concept within research on a college sport team? Okay, so we changed some of the language and defined, the concepts that we wanted that language to represent. So instead of person job fit, we came up with athlete role fit. Okay, how well an athlete feels how compatible an athlete feels with the role that they're asked to fill on their team, right? So if I'm a starter or a top performer on my team, and that's the role that I want to have, I probably have good athlete role fit, okay? If I'm a player that is not playing very often or is on the bench, but I perceive myself as a starter or a top performer, maybe I don't have as much alignment in terms of athlete role fit. Instead of person supervisor fit, right, we came up with athlete coach fit. So again, compatibility between an athlete and their coach. And that compatibility is defined along the lines of shared values, goals, expectations, and assumptions. Athlete teammate fit was used in place of person group fit. Okay, so this describes the compatibility an athlete perceives they have with their teammates. How well do I fit in with the other members of my team? And then finally, instead of person organization fit, we came up with athlete team fit, okay, which speaks to alignment that one has between their personal values and goals and the values, goals, expectations, assumptions, behaviors, all those things on the team. In other words, how well do I fit in with the overall culture on this team? Okay, so that's how we conceptualize the fit variables within this study. So let's describe for you here more detail about the overall research design. Okay, so this was a survey design, which we administered online to our participants. The questionnaire that we administered was 50 items in length. Okay, we had a series of demographic variables of interest. Of course, we had variables to capture those 4 dimensions of fit. We had variables to capture both academic and athletic satisfaction as perceived by our participants. And then we included some measures on organizational socialization. The literature suggests that socialization has an impact on one's sense of fit, right? The processes you went through as a newcomer to this organization. So we included socialization measures on our questionnaire as well. Now, our convenience sample was drawn from 4 Division II institutions within one athletic conference, actually. Student athletes at those institutions were, given the questionnaire. 257 usable responses were collected. So we ended up with a 27.3% response rate. And then our analysis included a pair of 3-step regression analyses. Okay, so I'll share with you some descriptive statistics here before we get into the results of those regressions. Majority of our participants identified as female. Majority identified as white. Majority were athletes on interdependent sport teams, basketball and soccer, okay? Majority of our participants were in their first or second year as student athletes at their institutions. And overall, our measures achieved acceptable reliability. Okay, so the regression analyses that we run, again, had 3 steps. We started by including just the demographic items. We added our socialization variables to the second step. And then the final step in both models included those fit variables. So the results of that first model with the outcome variable as academic satisfaction. This combination of variables explained just under 29% of the overall variability in that outcome. Okay, our second model, in which we positioned athletic satisfaction as our outcome, this combination of variables explained just over 50% of the overall variability in that outcome. Okay, so I'll share some more detail on those models in these next couple slides. So back to model 1 with academic satisfaction, we zero in on the fit variable specifically. They uniquely explained almost 10% of that variability. Okay, and then moving to the left side of this slide, right, these three variables were significant predictors in the final model. Okay, so academic rank or GPA, as you may expect to see with an outcome like academic satisfaction, but the only significant predictor among the fit variables was athlete teammate fit, right, compatibility with one's teammates. Now, model 2, with athletic satisfaction as the outcome, when we zero in on the fit variables on this one, they uniquely explain almost 20% of the variability, and actually almost all of that 19% is attributed to athlete-coach fit, which you can see on the left-hand side of this slide emerged as a significant predictor of athletic satisfaction alongside academic rank, which had a rather low effect there. Okay, so what do these results tell us as far as implications? Well, if we go back to academic satisfaction, right, perceived fit that an athlete has with their teammates plays a role in predicting their perception of their academic satisfaction, right? So fitting in, or the perception of fitting in with your teammates, plays a role in predicting academic satisfaction for that student athlete. What can coaches, athletic directors, administrators do with this information? Well, one suggestion, maybe developing a sort of mentor-mentee relationship among incoming or newcomer student athletes with more tenured members of the team. Maybe these athletes share a similar position or role on the team. Maybe these athletes share a similar academic program or major, right? Just a few years ago, Rubin and Moses reported that academic clusters within teams actually can have some positive effects on the academic experience of student athletes. More specifically, coaches may use team building events, whether they're preseason events, during the season, right after the season, these sort of common team building events specifically designed to encourage or promote a sense of fit among teammates, right? Be thoughtful and careful about these sort of events and the effects that they can have on developing a sense of fit among teammates. Okay, and then looking at the other main finding from model 2 of our regression analysis, right? The important role that athlete-coach fit played in predicting athletic satisfaction. Now, I don't expect many coaches or administrators would be surprised by this, right? The important role that coaches played in an athlete's satisfaction. Nevertheless, coaches should keep this information in mind, right? And look for opportunities to encourage a sense of fit with their athletes as individuals, right? Maybe using team meetings or one-on-one meetings with athletes to review and share values, goals, expectations, behaviors, assumptions that are important to the team, right? And making sure that those coaches and athletes are in alignment as far as those values, goals, and expectations. Perhaps coaches can encourage athletes to play a role in defining those values, goals, and expectations. Administrators, on the other hand, should incentivize or reward coaches that do individualize feedback in relationship building with student athletes, again, to encourage that sense of athlete-coach fit. Okay, so we'll conclude this presentation with some thoughts on future research and acknowledging some limitations. As far as future research, this study was designed to look at all 4 of those fit dimensions, right, in a regression model. But we figure it'd be useful to look at those fit dimensions more closely, right, in a study design and see how individual dimensions of fit may have different effects for student athletes. Right, well, our study didn't find any significant relationship between socialization and those outcomes in our regression models, I should say. Future research should still continue to look at the role socialization may play in the development of a sense of fit for a student athlete within their team setting. Okay, future research also could consider other outcome variables in relation to person-environment fit. Okay, right. We looked at academic and athletic satisfaction, right? But a future study could look at how person-environment fit relates to an athlete's perceptions about community engagement, to speak to that other component of the Division II strategic plan. On the other hand, future research could also consider negative variables as outcomes or in relation to person-environment fit, things like burnout or intention to transfer. And then finally, we're curious about how longitudinal designs could be framed in person-environment fit research, right? Looking at how a student athlete's perceptions about their fit among those different dimensions evolves temporally. Does that change from your first to your second to your third year and beyond? As far as our limitations, okay, the sampling strategy we use with that convenient method does restrict or limit, our ability to generalize these results, of course. We did administer the survey in the spring semester, as I said. So on top of, the overall survey exhaustion that many college students or student athletes feel, having the survey administered in the spring when just college students in general are, anxious for the semester to end, may have affected our non-response bias. And then finally, in terms of instrumentation, the scales that we used for the fit variables were developed in a workplace setting and used with a workplace population, right? So we made some modifications to the language on our scales. And while we had acceptable reliability, we have to acknowledge those changes that we made. Okay, so that concludes our presentation. Once again, we want to thank you all for signing on and visiting our presentation and listening to what we had to say. We hope you found this research and the results and implications interesting, and would certainly encourage you to leave us questions or feedback within the conference platform, or otherwise, don't be shy about emailing me directly with questions or feedback or anything else along those lines. And again, I'd like to thank CSRI for hosting a conference this spring. Dr. Turner and I, my co-author, have both attended this conference at the University of South Carolina in person in the past. Enjoy it very much, and we look forward to attending future conferences and meeting with you all in person when we can do that. So enjoy the rest of the conference, and thank you again for your time.